Hi, everybody. Today, for our Facebook video, in honor of National Nurses Week, we're talking with Jennifer McKeown, who's the clinical manager at Hospice of the Chesapeake. So, Jen, thanks so much for taking time to talk today about nursing, and happy National Nurses Week.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little bit about your role for Hospice of the Chesapeake. Sort of what do you do?
So when I started with Hospice of the Chesapeake, I was a case manager, working side by side with the patient and the family in the field, hands-on. But about a year and a half ago, I switched positions and became the clinical manager of a team that includes 5 nurses, a chaplain, 2 social workers, and 5 CNAs. So I get to help kind of direct them in their caring for the patients hands-on. So overseeing it's definitely a change, but something I've grown to love for sure.
So I'm imagining during this pandemic that things have become very different for you and your team. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what's been happening?
Let me tell you, it's been such a crazy, uncertain, and challenging time. I find that the only way to really get through this, because no one's ever experienced anything quite like this before, and it's just darn scary,
Yeah.
is to take it one day at a time and literally one situation at a time. That's the best way to get through it, so that it's not overwhelming and anxiety inducing.
Right.
So many things have changed since the COVID outbreak, and um, who may be exposed. How do you enter into each situation? Screening patients in facilities or family members before you go to see if there has been that risk for exposure. um, you know, my team primarily goes into assisted living facilities and skilled nursing facilities, and it's changed how we practice dramatically. We're lucky if the facility will even let us in the door dressed in full PPE protective equipment and see our patients. We've had to be creative on how to actually see our patients. There's some facilities that only allow us to see them through a window. So yeah, so we do what we can to still provide as much care to our patients, support to them and their loved ones as possible, but definitely have had to adjust things. Even the amount of visits we're able to make has changed. Usually we try to make a visit at least one time a week, if not more, as they continue to decline. But now we may be looking at an every other week situation, or, is the facility willing to FaceTime with us, or should we just, coordinate a window visit? It's definitely been an adjustment for sure, and
Yeah.
you know, how, how it affects the patients and the families, because not only are our staff not allowed into some of these facilities, but their family members are not either.
Right.
So
That's got to be so hard. And then just even, the whole protective equipment and how that creates a barrier in and of itself. I mean, that's got to be
definitely,
challenging too.
definitely. So, just in standard practice, using gloves or gowns, occasionally you would use a gown for isolation purposes, but now we're going into facilities wearing N95 masks, surgical masks, face shields, gowns, gloves, hairnets, booties, the work. So when you're going in to see a patient who a lot of times in facilities particularly may already be confused or severely hard of hearing, that's just another barrier to communication. Um, Having them hear what we're asking them, getting them to respond appropriately. Not only that, but when somebody is on hospice or at end of life, and you're having difficult conversations with them or their caregiver, they rely on your facial expressions, a comforting smile to ease them, to comfort them with what they're going through. And with that equipment, that truly kind of affects not only the communication, but how they see you and respond that way.
Yeah,
Um,
that's got to be so challenging. Like even just trying to convey that with your eyes. I'm sure you're trying to do all sorts of different,
yes, smile through your eyes if you
smiles.
can.
Yeah. Gosh.
So, and for my nurses in particular, I I haven't experienced the PPE personally. I've been lucky to be able to support my team remotely as much as possible. But for my nurses who are going into these facilities that do have COVID positive patients or caregivers, they've had to wear PPE from head to toe. And at first it was difficult. It was hot, it was uncomfortable, it was heavy. Trying to get used to wearing that while performing what you normally would for the patient was definitely an adjustment. But I have to say, they are absolutely incredible. The way that they just do it. They put it on because they know that patient needs that visit, and they're going to do whatever they can to make sure their patient gets what they need.
That's
And
awesome.
it's become like second nature to them. Sores on their noses, on their cheeks have now become calluses, and it's just incredible that
It truly, you hear a lot in the news about nurses being heroes and the
Mhm.
healthcare in general, the healthcare staff, those frontline folks are doing heroic work. And that just speaks to that, even from
Yes,
gearing up to then actually doing the care that they're doing. So I just find
absolutely.
it amazing.
With as much uncertainty as there is with COVID-19, it truly has amazed me how much my nurses, particularly on my team, and I know on all the other teams as well, have stepped up to the plate, have just done what they need to do in order to ensure that their patients get the care they need, are supported, that those loved ones who may not be able to see their families at
Right.
end of life, maybe even in their last days of life,
Yeah.
supporting them through that. It's been incredible to watch, and it truly moves me to watch my team work for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So if someone were to say to you, because, it is a sad time when someone is at the end of their life. It could definitely be sad. If someone says to you, oh my gosh, your job must be so depressing, how do you do it? Sort of what's your response to that?
Oh my goodness, I've heard that since day one with Hospice of the Chesapeake. And it's not just strangers, it's friends, it's family members who often want to apologize to me for my role as a hospice nurse. And that's not how I come to it. To me, I feel like hospice is a calling. It's something I'm meant to do. And it truly is the most rewarding position I've ever been in. To be able to help somebody at their end of life in that journey to meet those goals they have for themselves, to ensure they're comfortable and that everyone is fully supported in what might be and probably is the most difficult time in many people's lives. So
Right. Yeah, that's just it is. I totally feel you that it is a calling and it's a gift that you
it
are
takes a
able to
special
be.
person.
Well, and that is allowed, that you're allowed in this special time of someone's life, because it is just, a very intense emotional,
It's true.
space.
And just like any other job, you have your good and bad days. You have those that are particularly challenging or emotionally draining, but I would say far more of the days are rewarding, and just to be there with somebody when they need you the most, it's just an incredible feeling.
So is there any particular experience that you've had that really stands out to you as one that sort
Whew.
of just really resonated with you?
That's tough because I've had so many different experiences that are so memorable in different ways. I mean, there's so many patients who have experienced so many different things, have had so many different professions, and can tell so many different stories. It truly is amazing just to listen. But there is one in particular that I know I will absolutely never forget, and he absolutely just moved me. He was a veteran who made a career out of his it was a military career. He retired, I believe, as a Marine. And I remember just sitting with him reminiscing about all of his past experiences in the military, in the war, how he met his wife. He was just the most selfless and incredible person, even though he had gone through so many different things that you would think would make somebody um, worn down, or
Complicated. Yeah,
or or just upset with life. He was just so incredible, and that was one of my favorite times, going in there, doing what I had to do as his hospice nurse, making sure his care was provided, but being able to sit there with him and reminisce about all of his adventures through life and where he traveled, where he had been overseas, and various experiences, and then to be able to have the honor of being with him through that journey of end of life and helping him to have a dignified and comfortable passing was truly, truly an experience for me that I'll never forget. So
That sounds incredible. That
he was
sounds,
an amazing man for sure.
that's awesome. What about a misconception or something that you hear a lot that you were sort of like, that is so not true, regarding hospice and hospice nursing? Is there anything that jumps to
Oh,
mind?
for
Yeah.
sure. There's a big one for sure. The I would say the biggest misconception about hospice in general, but hospice nurses as well, is that once you sign on the dotted line to join hospice or have hospice involved, that the nurse is going to come in there with her morphine and just end things or hasten things, and that's not what we do at all. We really want our patients and their families to drive the goals that that they may have for end of life, which are ever changing for sure, but we want to meet the patient and the family where they are in their journey and help them to experience end of life in the way that they envision for themselves.
That's awesome. That is, and I know I've heard that too, that once you sign up for hospice, it's going to have, that
Oh yeah.
giving up and that's it. And
You're,
it's just
exactly.
so not the
And
case. And then you talk to people that families that once they have made that decision, they're like, I wish we had done this so
sooner.
much sooner, right?
Yeah.
Like I hear that all the time. Like this could have been so helpful for us as the family, because that's part of your role too, not just working with the patient, but you provide a lot of support.
And what's crazy is a lot of times, especially for the patients in facilities that we have, they may come on hospice and then improve, do better for an extended period of time, to the point where we have to graduate them off of hospice services because they truly are no longer appropriate. So
Right.
it definitely is a huge misconception that we're in there to end things.
Yeah, yeah. I am so grateful for you as a nurse and for your
You know,
team and for all the nurses everywhere, but especially at Hospice of the Chesapeake. I am just amazed at the dedication, and I just want to say thank you.
thank you. And thank you to all the nurses through Hospice of the Chesapeake, and all your hard work and everything you're doing for our patients and their caregivers to make sure that they're supported in this extremely difficult time. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks again, Jen. And I want to make sure I say thank you to the John and Kathy Belcher Institute for their generous support of community outreach programs like this. And thanks you guys for watching.